Well, hello there. Welcome to Biblical Chili. Why don't you follow me and I'll find a place for you to take that load off. The boys are just about to start. If you've been here before, welcome back. But if this is your first time, let me fill you in on a few details. You see, we speak openly about the Bible and our daily walk with Christ. And it's our continuing prayer that everyone that walks through those doors grows a little closer to Jesus every day. And I tell you what, you came at a great time too. The boys are walking through the entire Bible from cover to cover, one story at a time. Speaking of stories, we'd love to hear yours. So why don't you tell us all about it in that box below called comments? And after this is all over, if you like what you heard, on the way out, there's a button called subscribe. It's red and it's got a little bell next to it. Oh, and tell your friends. Oh, here we go. Here's a nice seat right up front for you. Now you sit down and get comfortable. And I'd like to sit here and talk to you and get to know you better, but that was the door. I got to go. Those boys had better get the let out and get going. This crowd seems restless. I'm coming.
Order up.
Now before we start, I got something to say about this episode. See, the boys this time had a brilliant idea of going live casting again. Every time they talk about this stuff, it sounds like they're going fishing. But that's not the point. Listen, the boys really outdid themselves in this recording. They were so long-winded we had to split this into two. So, if you hear the boys all of a sudden fade out, I promise, next week, we'll finish up the episode. So we had to split this into two parts. And without any further ado, let's continue on with this story about Jacob and how he ran away again, and his uncle Laban caught up with him.
Our last episode that we recorded, we talked about Jacob and his wages. Yeah, how he had to work hard for everything he had, and then he got to have the speckled and the striped and
all the junk, basically.
Yeah, he had some creative breeding so that he could grow his flock. All right, Genesis chapter 31, and it reads, Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude towards him was not what it had been. Then the Lord said to Jacob, go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, I see that your father's attitude towards me is not what it was before.
It's very perceptive.
But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he said, the speckled ones will be your wages, then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, the streaked ones will be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. Time out.
I wish I had the sound effects ready.
While we all know that birth is a gift from God,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
he has been dabbling in livestock now for many years.
The proper term is husbandry.
Husbandry.
That's a proper term.
Good
Yeah.
at that.
So,
What? Husbandry. Yep.
Husbandry is the skill of being able to raise livestock in a proper manner. So like exactly what he did. He did what's called artificial selection. So like if you wanted white sheep, then you only breed the white ones and you don't allow the brown ones to breed, basically.
Yeah.
And that's basically what he did. I mean, that's what we read last chapter. So,
and I'm glad that he's giving God the credit, but it also feels like he's giving God the blame. You know, he went of his own wits and decided to do this.
Wait, hold on. So you're talking about he's giving God the blame about Laban being upset with him?
No, about the speckled and about how his herds have grown.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but in chapter 30, he did these things specifically to increase the strength of his herd, to only breed the strong ones. And now he's like, oh, God has saw to it that this happened.
Well,
kind of
God,
okay,
God didn't have to bless it the way he did, because if you think about it, it says all of them came out like that. It wasn't just, oh, some of them came out. Oh, there was a few of them came
Right.
out. No, all of them came out that way. And then when things were reversed, he was like, okay, I'll breed the ones you told me to breed. Okay. And all of them came out for Jacob, not just some of them. Like everything went to him. We breed other animals and you get most of what you're going to expect, but you don't get all of them that way. Okay. So the fact that all of them went towards him, then he's going, okay, I did a lot of stuff here, but there's no way I could have done that good.
Right.
That's my outlook.
Well,
on that.
I mean, you're only talking about, and we get into this a little bit later, you're only talking about him working for him for another 6 years. What did we calculate, Tom? What sheep have, what was the gestation?
Like 165
Yeah, 165
days.
or 169
And
days.
if they only drop one lamb at a time, but they can still just keep going. So his herd, flock, gathering, what is the proper terminology?
I think a sheep is a flock.
Sheep is a
flock?
flock and his cattle is a herd.
It'd say flocks. Yeah,
Right.
flocks gave
So,
birth to speckled.
so I mean, in 6 years, you could imagine if every sheep was giving birth to just his color. Let's just put it that way. If all the sheep were giving birth to just to his color, in 6 years, man, he could rack up the dough like
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Now,
Back then, large herds and large flocks, things of that nature, that was your money. That
Yeah.
was your stance in your
Yep.
community of who you are. If you have a lot of things and property.
right. And that could add up quick. I
And
guess that's all we're saying is like this could happen very rapidly where Laban would lose everything in just a handful of years.
Yep.
Yes.
So the reason why I said timeout is because that conversation there lends to his mindset in my perspective of reading this. So he's saying God has blessed it. Now he didn't say in chapter 30, about this dream. Like if this would have been chronologically the other way, where it's like, oh, it was an inspired action. Now afterwards, he says, starting in chapter 31, verse 10, in breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, or spotted. The angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob answered, here I am. And he said, look up and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land. Then Rachel and Leah replied, do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate?
Greedy girls.
Does not he regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what he has paid for us.
Okay, I'm sorry. This sounds like they're turning on Jacob now.
They
Right.
kind
They
of are,
sold
but-
us to this
but-
guy.
But you got to think about that. Everything their dad had was Jacob's,
Yeah, well, basically,
pretty much.
Yeah.
And now they're complaining about it.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
well, we don't have
Well,
anything
well,
left to take with us.
They're like giving him a okay, Skippy, because here in the next verse 16, surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you. so it's like, okay, we've already gotten everything from our dad because by proxy we're married to you, so it's ours.
Right.
So you just go ahead and do whatever you got to do. All
So
right?
yeah, I was just gonna say. So his wives are giving him this blessing to be like, yeah, let's get out of here.
Right.
I would say though that like when it comes to them, they're talking about their inheritance. Women back then it was a custom that women actually did have an inheritance. Many people believe that just the men or the firstborn did, but no, every child was supposed to get an inheritance.
They were given something. Yeah.
Well, a woman's inheritance was, okay, if my daughter is going to marry this man has to, number one, prove that he can provide. So in other words, he like gives me 5 sheep or 60 cattle or whatever it was. And then I will give you my daughter, and I will also give my daughter, they call it a dowry. And this is so she can start her life with this new man. So she has usually it was either clothes or jewelry or something special that women had, lace or something like that. Apparently, Laban quite literally just gave them away with no dowry. That means they had basically no clothes, no jewelry, no basically the feminine amenities of the day. He gave them nothing.
Right. Well,
He just said, "Here's your man."
yeah,
and a servant. I think they gave. Yeah.
basically as they were saying it, they were like, he sold us as if we were money.
Yeah.
He paid him me
To work for 7 years each.
Yes, and that was it. I mean, there was no additional nothing. There was no other. It was just, yeah, I'm yours because you just worked 7 years, and
There you go.
that's it. I'm money to my dad.
Thanks, Dad.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Poor ladies.
Right?
Poor
My
ladies.
soul.
They're having a hard time with this.
Well, we started seeing their attitude like spike up, like, you know, even in chapters past where Leia had bought Jacob's services for the night with
Right.
with Reuben's, what do they call them, the like little potato thingies, the
Oh, turnips?
No. Oh,
Oh,
what was
it's-
it?
Stirrups.
no,
No.
not stirrups.
Stirrups.
Oh my goodness. Because I'm Harry Potter. That's the only reason why I remember this.
Mandrakes.
Mandrakes.
Yes.
Mandrakes.
So yeah, hey, I bought you with mandrakes. Come on. So like they already have that
Yeah.
entitlement, because now it's even seeded further, because not only have they been sold, but as soon as he started getting paid for the last 6 years, they got sent 3 days journey away from their home and anything that they knew.
Right.
Yeah.
To continue on here, verse 17, then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all of his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Paddan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all that he had, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. So
Bye.
deception by omission. Like, all right, you're going 3 days away to go shear your sheep. Quick, guys, go.
Let's go.
And it could have been like a quiet, if he took everything he had with him, all of his flocks. You think
So were they going through the wilderness like mash, mash?
No, what I'm thinking is Laban, like a couple days go by, he's like, man, it's quiet around here.
or
I sleep so good, you guys.
His
Like, what is this?
His 10 sheep in the field,
Yeah,
weren't
right?
making
That's
any
what I
noise.
mean. He had like nothing there.
I picture him like trying to get some sleep, and you feel this low rumble in the earth from all the hooves, and you got this old guy out back. Crazy weather we're having, eh?
The thing is, though, like we see, with Rachel, of all people, though, honestly, I don't know about you guys, but with this story, when I was going through it again, why was it Rachel? Was Rachel seriously more bitter than Leah? Like, Leah seemed like the one who was really
First
like,
of all, I believe it might have been an age factor too.
she was a younger one.
Yep. How she was treated in respect. Leia was a lot more meek mannered in reference to her like attitude towards life.
I don't know.
Yeah,
No, they
but-
started fights earlier.
They did, but like later on, you can see like the character of who Leia was, and then Rachel. If it would have been me, I mean, if I was Leia, I'd have been a lot more angry than the situations that happened. But to me, I think it might have been a combination of her age and then like just how she saw her dad treat her sister and then her is a big deal. I think it was a combination of
Right.
things, and so I think it was just boiling up.
Right,
inside
right.
her.
So I think honestly, and this is just my opinion, get everybody else's opinion on this too, but I think she did it because of her bitterness toward the inheritance.
Yeah, amen.
Because at least scripture says, we don't know all the details, obviously, there are some things omitted, but it seems as though that all that Laban did was give the daughters over to this guy and a servant, and that's it. And I think Rachel was probably harboring some bitterness toward this, like, although, well, you know what? That's a good point, though. Bing, like goes off. Okay, who got gypped in the first place when it came to the agreement between Laban and Jacob?
Rachel.
Rachel
It was
did.
Rachel. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Rachel got gypped and Jacob got gypped. And then, Rachel had to go through all that and be like, "Wow, what's going on?" And so like the whole deception thing there also. So maybe she's still harboring some
Oh yeah.
resentment
You could
or
definitely
something.
see
Yeah.
that.
And now she's like, "Well, you know what? We're leaving anyway. Might as well take daddy's,
Well, the other
brass god and golden
Well-
god and silver god."
you just said it there. I think that's another thing that I think a lot of folks don't think about is she didn't really know Jacob's God.
Well, I'm
So
sure she
the
introduced
other-
during this time.
Right, but she knew her dad's gods.
True.
And so they were leaving that area. They were completely leaving, going away. They weren't taking any of the idols with them. She knew and understand what her dad did. That's another aspect of it too, where maybe she wanted to try to take that with her as her
What
blessing
memento or
something
lucky
to
charm?
bless them, right? To bless them along the way so that they could continue.
So you're
in
not
that
saying she
endeavor.
might have taken it for finances. You're thinking maybe she took it also for the sake of familiarity of those.
She didn't just take a gold piece. She
Yep.
took the idols.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
It was like specifically stating that what she took was the actual idols that he would worship.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Wow.
and that's what she was raised with.
Well, that's true. I mean, at this point, how many years was it?
20.
Yeah.
No. That Rachel was actually with Jacob.
Oh.
How many years? So that would have been
13.
6 plus,
Yeah.
6 plus 7. It would have been about 13 years roughly.
Yeah.
And actually, Leah would have been the same.
Right.
Leah
No,
would have been
it would have
about the
been 20.
same. No, she was given after the 7 also, after the first 7 years also.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
like he
I see
worked
where
for
you're-
7 years and then they got married technically to both. I mean, it was like a week later or something like that.
Right.
And then another 7 years to pay off for Rachel and then 6 more years of working for wages. And now he's wealthy. And so, I mean, they would have been familiar for only about 13 years to Jacob's God. That's a good point.
Well, I also like to point out the fact that in the last chapter, I do believe Laban actually had, or not Laban, but Leah actually had more of a feeling towards Jacob. It wasn't like the fact that I got sold. It was like, hey, he's going to come to my bed now. I can bear him a child. Hey, he's going to come to my bed now. I'll
Right.
bear him another
Often,
child.
didn't she say like
Yeah.
so many times, hey, maybe my husband will love me now?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Right.
Like it
So-
almost seems like she was the one that wanted, the beautiful white wedding type of thing.
Yeah. The picket fence in the house
Yeah,
and everything
yeah.
else.
now Jacob is gone. Poof, gone.
More like,
And then 3 days later, Laban found that he was gone. So I'm going to skip ahead and then go right into to this point here up to verse 26. Laban found out they were gone. He
well, I would
took
go
after
back.
them,
I would
and
at
then he
least
fell
do
asleep.
24 because
24?
there's a key point in 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God talking to him.
Yeah.
So then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, neither good nor bad. Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? You deceived me, and you've carried off all my daughters. Now, I'm not really saying this to you because God told me not to say anything to you. But you carried my daughters off like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me, so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of timbrels and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my granddaughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you. But last night, the God of your father said to me, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good nor bad. Now that you have gone off because you long to return to your father's household, but why did you steal my gods? Jacob's answer to Laban, well, I was afraid, because I thought that you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods.
All right, hold on. We got a comment real quick. Hey, I know this lady. Not only that it was a disgrace for a woman to be barren, that is very true, her sister had children, which gives honor to Leah. Not only that Leah had sons, Rachel was hurt by her dad by giving the sister first. And then her sister had sons for Jacob first.
Yeah.
Well, and that's true. That's true. We actually talk about that the previous episode where she actually says that God has heard my affliction. And it actually does say in there that God did care that the fact that Leah was not being treated properly in that family. She was not treated as part of the family unit. And so this disgrace was upon her. And so God allowed her, how many was it? 5?
Oh, Leah,
or 4? Yeah. 4.
Yeah, 4, because her mindset changed. Every child that she had, it went, now maybe my husband will love me. Now maybe my husband will respect me.
Yeah.
Now maybe my husband will actually want to be around me. And then the 4th one, Judah, was when she said, well, praise God, because God's the one that loves me through this and he's blessed me.
He's the one that's caring for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about that and who comes out of Judah, and it was fun. But yeah, I completely agree there.
Some of this, though, also with the whole, I know this is kind of touchy, but it's a subject that usually comes up much later in Scripture. But Jacob had a legitimate fear here about losing. Yes, that is correct. Rachel was barren during that time as well. Because I believe Rachel was like the last one to really bear.
Correct.
No. She was the second to last because she gave her servant also to have kids and da.
Yeah, that whole
Yeah, and that all mess again.
Again.
So Jacob, just historically speaking, Jacob has a legitimate fear here because when somebody, I don't know how to put this, because Jacob was in kind of a weird position. Number one, this was his family, yes. But he was a hired servant, technically. From a legal perspective, he was a hired servant. And when someone was a hired servant back in those days, number one, the master, i.e. his uncle, was supposed to take care of him in the sense of clothe him, feed him, give him a place to stay, etc. But that's it. Like that was his only obligation. But they had made obviously further arrangements about marriage and so forth. But here's the thing. Back in and I understand the Jews were not established just yet, but back in Jewish established social culture, yeah, thank you. When somebody worked for you, even if, so like, let's just pretend here. Okay, Sully, let's say you owe me $1,000, but instead of paying me, you're like, you know what, I can't pay you. Justin, can I just work for you? And okay, no big deal. Okay, great. So like, let's say you start working for me and you're working off the $1,000, but let's say, lo and behold, you know, you fall in love with my daughter and you marry her and you guys have a family together. The thing is even after you pay off that debt, that's my daughter and those are my kids. Unless previous arrangements were made. Do you understand what I'm saying? You were a servant in that household. So Jacob, I'm certain in Laban's mind, was a servant in that household working for him. He was an employee, which means none of this is in Laban's mind, I should say. Mind you, it was fair because he did get paid for working 7 years. The 7 years was for the ladies, you know. Yeah. You know, so I'm sure in Laban's mind it was like, no, these are my kids. This is my daughters. These are my grandkids. This is my stuff you're taking away. You know, he's got this. Oh, what did you bring up today, Tom? He's got that, or you were saying that the whole God's thing, but the Samson complex.
Oh yeah, I want this. I deserve this. You know, that feeling of entitlement.
Yeah, that entitlement. So like he basically felt like Jacob was stealing from him when everything was technically fair and square.
Now I have to also point this out that Jacob is being talked to by God.
Yes.
Yeah.
He hasn't acted with a lot of pride or understanding, or, you know, back in the day of his grandfather, Abraham, if God said to do something, Abraham would tell everybody about it and be full of faith and just do it. God said he's going to be with me, then okay, I can just do whatever I want to, say whatever I want to, whoever's going to, because God's got my back.
Right.
You know, and here God has told Jacob, I will be with you. Just do this. Go to the land of your father, and I'll be with you. And he's still like, okay, I will, but let's not tell anybody
Right.
because I'm going to get in trouble. So that faith, even though he's in conversation with a relationship, albeit probably estranged because he's been away from Isaac for a long time, that strength of faith just isn't there.
I think also with Jacob, don't forget, what did he go through 20 years ago? He
Right.
basically had a brother that wanted to kill him.
Yes.
And I think his whole life, he was, what's the term? Treading lightly?
Yeah. Well,
I guess you could put it that way. Like I think like, okay. So for example, when he was leaving his home, right? Oh, we got visitors. Woo! Bible Belt Bros.
Oh,
Hey guys. I think when Jacob was leaving, when you read the story about Jacob leaving, and if you guys want to reenact or re-listen to that, go ahead and go back a couple episodes.
reenact it.
Reenact it.
Whoa. Reenact it. We'd love to see that.
you can do that too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, send it to us. That'd be fun. Jacob, did you notice Jacob? It talks about how he walked through the wilderness. He was avoiding people.
Yes.
He did not want it to get back of where he went and what track he took to get to his family members. Because I don't think Esau knew at all where he went to, and he was trying to avoid people at all costs. So once again, he was treading lightly to try to, so maybe that has something to do with his faith. Maybe his boldness didn't come until much later.
Well, hello, everyone. Now that this is all over, I hope you had a great time. Now listen, you don't have to go home, but you can stay here. I'm closing up. And the boys gave me this note to let you know you can get a hold of them on something called Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Podcast. What are they, fishing for whales? Listen, folks, just look up Biblical Chili anywhere. I'm sure you'll be able to find them out there. And until, Lord willing, we'll see you again. May the Lord bless you. Goodbye. Do you think they're still listening? I doubt it. There can't be that many people that listened all the way to the end of the track. Most will probably skip it. But in case you did, congratulations, you're one of the few. We love you.